Have you ever wondered what the first few months of the American Civil War were really like? Forget the epic battles you see in movies. In reality, neither side expected a long war. In fact, some Southerners hoped the attack on Fort Sumter would just scare the North into negotiating. They knew they were outnumbered and outgunned, but they also saw the Union's weaknesses. President Lincoln's own cabinet, and even some of his generals, secretly doubted if he could lead the country through a war. Many of his top military men were old, out of shape, or just plain ineffective. But armies needed a plan. The North turned to Lieutenant General Winfield Scott, a seasoned veteran who proposed the famous Anaconda Plan. The idea was simple but brilliant. First, defend the capital, Washington, D.C., at all costs. Second, use the Navy to blockade the entire southern coast, strangling their trade. And third, launch a massive attack down the Mississippi River to literally cut the Confederacy in half. But politics got in the way. Under pressure to score a quick, decisive victory, much of Scott's long-term plan was ignored. Still, the Union had to do something. By late May 1861, Union forces crossed the Potomac River and seized Arlington Heights in Virginia. Small skirmishes started popping up all over the state. On June 10th, the North tried to expand its territory around Fort Monroe, one of its last footholds in the South, but it backfired. At the Battle of Big Bethel, the Confederates scored another victory. It really seemed like all the momentum and the better leadership was on the southern side. But then, the Union got a rare political win. The northwestern counties of Virginia, unhappy with secession, voted to break away and form a new state, West Virginia, which sided with the Union. This was a huge morale boost. With spirits high, the Union Army turned its attention to the big prize, Richmond, Virginia, the new capital of the Confederacy. General Irvin McDowell was chosen to lead the charge. He marched his army of 35,000 men toward what everyone believed would be the final, glorious battle of the war. The mood was so optimistic that civilians literally followed the army with picnic baskets, ready to watch a quick victory like it was a sporting event. What they witnessed instead was a disaster known as the First Battle of Bull Run. Most of McDowell's troops were brand new recruits, poorly trained and completely unprepared for the chaos of a real battle. What was supposed to be an organized Union retreat quickly spiraled out of control. Within an hour, all discipline had vanished. Southern forces chased the fleeing Northerners relentlessly, turning what could have been a respectable defeat into an absolute rout. Some Union soldiers didn't stop running until they staggered back into Washington the next day, completely exhausted and humiliated. The reality was crushing. Their entire grand campaign was a failure. The humiliation at Bull Run was a devastating blow to President Lincoln's reputation. He was already facing intense criticism, and this made everything worse. As the war dragged on, many Americans began accusing Lincoln of acting like a tyrant. To be fair, crackdowns on dissent are common in wartime, but his administration's actions were seen as a harsh suppression of free speech. Mail, telegraphs, and newspapers were heavily censored. Some were shut down completely. If you were caught openly sympathizing with the Confederacy, you could be arrested without a trial. It got so extreme that a Democratic congressman, Clement Vallandigham, was arrested in his own home for giving speeches against the war. The office of one newspaper was literally destroyed by government agents. Whispers of impeachment even started to circulate in Washington. At the same time, abolitionists were ramping up the pressure on Lincoln. They demanded he make the war a crusade against slavery, not just a fight to hold the country together. But Lincoln hesitated. He wasn't ready to redefine the war's purpose just yet. Instead, he approved the Confiscation Act of 1861. This law allowed the federal government to seize any property being used to aid the rebellion, and that included enslaved people. These individuals, now called contrabands, were put to work for the Union Army. It was a small step, but a significant one. Just 4 days after that act was passed, the war roared back to life, this time out west. On August 10, 1861, the Battle of Wilson's Creek erupted near Springfield, Missouri. The Union Brigadier General, Nathaniel Lyon, faced off against two Confederate generals, Ben McCulloch and Sterling Price. In a strange twist of fate, both armies had planned to launch a surprise attack on each other on the exact same night, August 9th, but a heavy rainstorm rolled in, and McCulloch, the Confederate commander, decided to call off his attack. General Lyon, however, decided to press on. At dawn on August 10th, Union soldiers shattered the morning calm. Their surprise assault was incredibly effective at first, pushing deep into the Confederate lines. They even managed to capture a key piece of high ground that would soon be known as Bloody Hill. But on the slopes of that very hill, the tide began to turn. For 6 brutal hours, the two sides fought with savage intensity. It was some of the fiercest fighting the war had seen yet, and it proved that the conflict was only just beginning. The quick, glorious victory everyone had hoped for was nothing but a dream. The reality was a long, bloody road ahead. Thanks for watching. If you want to learn more about the untold stories of history, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.